The Lenovo Y7000 gaming laptop is available with decent mid-range specs, but just how well does it actually perform in games? I've tested 20 games at all setting levels and also compared it with other laptops to help you decide if it's worth it. The configuration I've got has an Intel i7-9750H CPU, 80W NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti graphics, 16GB of memory and dual channel, and a 15.6-inch 1080p 60Hz screen. It's also available with 144Hz though. This is just what mine came with, and there are other different specs you can pick too. You can find different options and updated prices linked in the description. The Lenovo Vantage software lets us select different performance modes, and I've done all testing with performance mode enabled for best results. It also gives you the option of disabling hybrid mode, which basically turns off Optimus and will improve performance in some games. We'll only be covering gaming performance in this video, so if you're new to the channel, you'll definitely want to get subscribed for the upcoming thermal testing and full review. Let's start out by going through all games at all setting levels, then afterwards we'll see how the Y7000 compares with some other laptops. Red Dead Redemption 2 was tested using the game's built-in benchmark tool. High settings was still giving fair results, considering this is a somewhat resource-heavy title, while medium settings and below was needed to average above 60 FPS. Battlefield 5 was tested in campaign mode, and the game was running quite well, even maxed out with the ultra setting preset, where even the 1% lows were above the refresh rate of the panel. Control was performing well enough with the high setting preset. However, medium settings was better overall, where the Y7000 was able to average above 60 FPS. In fact, it wasn't far off this even for the 1% low performance. Apex Legends was tested with either all settings at maximum or all settings at the lowest possible values, as it doesn't have predefined setting presets. It was playing very well even with all settings at max, easily over 100 FPS, while minimum settings sat on the 144 FPS frame cap. Call of Duty Modern Warfare was tested in campaign mode, and I've also tested it with the settings either maxed out or at minimum. It was running well even with all settings at maximum, still averaging above 60 FPS without any problem. Borderlands 3 was tested using the game's built-in benchmark, and the high setting preset was just able to hit 60 for the average FPS, while low and below was able to push beyond 100 FPS. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the built-in benchmark, and the results were pretty decent for a 1660 Ti laptop, but we'll see how the Y7000 compares against other laptops in this game and more soon. Ghost Recon Breakpoint was also tested with the benchmark tool, and ultra settings were needed to average 60 FPS in this test. However, the 1% low was quite a bit lower comparatively, so a little lower would probably be a good sweet spot. Fortnite was tested with the replay feature, and as a less demanding game, Epic settings was almost able to average 100 FPS, with 1% low performance above the refresh rate of the 1080p display, and much higher results were possible with lower settings. Overwatch is another less demanding game and was tested in the practice range. Again, even with the Epic setting preset, the average frame rate is quite high, easily surpassing 100 FPS. CSGO was tested using the Uletical FPS benchmark, and the results are much better here when compared to most other laptops with similar specs due to the option of disabling Optimus. Every time I test this game with a laptop that only uses the NVIDIA GPU without the Intel GPU getting in the way, the performance is way up. Dota 2 was tested playing in the middle lane, and there was hardly any real measurable difference between the different setting levels, let alone one you'd practically notice, so might as well just play with all settings at max. Rainbow Six Siege was tested with the built-in benchmark, and once again, very high frame rates even with the highest ultra setting preset, with even the 1% load not too far off 100 FPS. Metro Exodus was tested using the built-in benchmark. Most parts of the game perform a fair bit better than this, so don't take these results as a good indication of what to expect throughout the entire game. It's more of a worst case. The Division 2 was also tested with the built-in benchmark, and although it was possible to average above 60 FPS at ultra settings, the 1% low was around half this, so lower settings would likely be needed for a more stable experience, but this seems pretty normal for this test. PUBG was tested using the replay feature. The game was still getting decent frame rates at ultra settings, at least when we consider the 60Hz 1080p screen that my Y7000 has. Even the 1% low performance was above this. However, we could greatly improve this with lower settings, which would be more beneficial if you have the 144Hz option. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was tested with the built-in benchmark, and as a resource-heavy game, the frame rates weren't that high with the higher setting presets. But this is pretty standard for this game, and it doesn't need super high FPS to play. Far Cry New Dawn was also tested with the game's benchmark, and the results are pretty similar compared to most other i7 based laptops that I've tested on the channel. The Witcher 3 was playing okay at ultra settings and was playable. However, there was a fairly big improvement just by playing with high settings, and I think the game still looks pretty good at high anyway. F1 2019 was tested using the game's benchmark tool, and although max settings had decent average FPS, the 1% low performance was down substantially. However, stepping down just one level to high increased performance significantly. Let's also take a look at how this config of the Lenovo Y7000 compares with other laptops. Use these results as a rough guide only, as they were tested at different times with different drivers. In Battlefield 5, I've got the Y7000 highlighted in red near similarly spec'd machines. In this case, it's performing closely to many of the other GTX 1660 Ti laptops that I've tested, like the Acer Helios 300, although the 1% low performance isn't quite as good, probably as the Helios has an undervolt by default. Interestingly, despite having the same specs, the Y7000 was better in average FPS compared to the Y540 just below it. These are the results from Far Cry 5 with ultra settings in the built-in benchmark. This time the average FPS was basically the same as the Y540, however the Helios 300 was noticeably ahead here. As this seems to be more of a CPU-bound test, this isn't surprising. Again, as the Helios is undervolted by default. We could probably expect similar gains to the Y7000 with some tweaks. I'll look at that in an upcoming video. For now, we're looking at stock results, which is what most people will use. These are the results from Shadow of the Tomb Raider with the built-in benchmark at highest settings. Like Battlefield 5, the Y7000 is around 5 FPS ahead of the Y540 with same specs, and only just 1 to 2 FPS behind the other 1660 Ti machines I've looked at. So performance is about what I'd expect with this hardware. Overall, the gaming performance from the Y7000 is fair considering the specs. The GTX 1660 Ti graphics paired with i7 CPU and 16GB of memory and dual channel offer a combination that can play pretty much any game with decent settings. The option of disabling Optimus to further increase gaming performance is just icing on the cake. In the few games we looked at here, it seemed to perform a little better than the Y540 with same specs that I've previously reviewed. Let me know what you thought of the gaming performance from the Lenovo Y7000 gaming laptop down in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, consider getting subscribed for the full review to see everything this gaming laptop has to offer.